A big thank you to all of my listeners. And if you would like to support this transmission even more and boost your trading account, go to trendfollowing.com/now. And without any further delay, on to today's show. This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, MICHAEL COVEL. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. My guest today is Adam Khoo. He is a Singaporean serial entrepreneur, author, trainer, and professional trader. He has trained thousands of people across Southeast Asia. And if you've not yet been to Southeast Asia, let me give you some numbers. Probably in the 500 million range. That means across Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, the Philippines, Indonesia, 500 million people. I've had the good fortune to meet Adam in person and chat several times. And it's safe to say, based on my spending a lot of time in Asia, he is extremely well known in this part of the world. A really interesting guy, and his trading approach fits right in with my audience. A very trend following, find the edge, find that mathematical expectation, know your entries, know your position sizing. He's right there with my type of thinking. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Adam Khoo. So Adam, the only reason that I'm speaking with you today is because I read a book in 1994. This is serious. I'm going to give you a brief 30 seconds and let you respond. I was reading Unlimited Power in my last semester of grad school while living in London, Unlimited Power by Anthony Robbins. And he basically said, if you want to know something, or if you want to learn something, go find the people that are the best and model their behavior. Even if you don't understand their behavior at first, model their behavior. And that was actually the nexus, the beginning of me reaching out to all these great traders that you and I know. That was the start for me. That was the kind of, I used his technique literally from that book. People might think I'm joking, but I'm not. In 1994, I have a funny feeling that you had maybe slightly different, but you had a motivational experience early on in your teen years as well. Why don't you describe that?
I mean, you're not going to believe this, but it was that same book I read. Okay? I read it when I was 15 years old. So that was 1989. So I mean, what happened was I was a problem kid. I had learning difficulties. I was called stupid by my teachers and all that. And so my parents sent me for a motivational program when I was 13 years old. And that's when I was exposed to NLP, Neuro-linguistic programming, and all this personal development kind of stuff. I was then introduced to Tony Robbins and Unlimited Power. And it was the first book that I ever enjoyed reading. And that totally changed my life. You know, it changed my perspective. And all the things it taught me was exactly what you talked about, which is if someone can do something, so can I. It's all a question of strategy and modeling someone's strategy. And so that's how I got really excited, because in the past I used to think that people are smarter than me. If someone can do something, I can't do it because they're smarter than me. But once I understood that concept, I realized that it's because I was using the wrong learning strategy. When I started applying the right learning strategy, like, you know, how to make notes, how to memorize, how to take exams, I started excelling in my schoolwork, and I eventually taught my school.
You know, people might be listening and thinking, well, that was a well-rehearsed little thing where you both were influenced by the same book. I literally had no conversation with you at all about this.
Not at all.
Yeah. But it's funny how that works. Listen, you brought up NLP. It's an interesting topic, and I've had a guest on my podcast named Charles Faulkner, who's been heavily involved in NLP over the years. Why don't you explain for the novice out there, and perhaps even add something for people that have forgotten a little bit, why don't you explain NLP? And look, we could talk about this for hours, but why don't you give kind of a broad overview, bring people into NLP, and let them understand from your perspective?
Okay, let me just define it. So N stands for neuro, right? Neuro is your nervous system, right? Your brain. So NLP is a study of how the brain works from a psychological perspective. So in other words, how do your thoughts affect your emotions? How your emotions affect your behavior and your results? And using NLP, you are able to direct your thoughts with precision. How do you direct your mind to think in a positive way, for example? How do you control your emotions? How do you motivate yourself? How do you build your self-confidence? How do you break through depression and fear? The L stands for linguistic, which is basically language. So NLP is essentially how you use the language of the mind to create shifts in the way you think, as well as how you use language to influence other people. When you talk to yourself in a certain way, for example, when you say to yourself, you know what, what's wrong with me? And nothing ever goes right. And we know, for example, in trading, a lot of our emotions comes about because of the self-talk that goes into our mind. Like, it's going to be a losing trade. What if I screw this? What if I lose all my money, right? That self-talk directs your emotions, and it creates all the negative, unresourceful emotions like fear, like greed and whatever, and that creates the behavioral result that you do not want. So when you can control your thoughts, you control your emotions and hence your results. So in a nutshell, NLP is the science of success conditioning.
Before we get into your current world, and I love that perspective because I think NLP is a hugely important concept for people that don't understand. I want to dig a little bit more on your early thinking because I was thinking about our conversation today and I'm like, okay, two things about you. Well, I guess I can add NLP and the psychological side. You, first and foremost, are an entrepreneur. And then your entrepreneurial direction went down a trading path. And that trading path happens to have some overlap with my experience too. So I think it's going to be a fun conversation. But why don't you explain a little bit as a young guy? Look, I as a Westerner, I know Singapore, okay? When I go to Singapore, I feel like these are my Asian American friends because you guys think like Americans or perhaps faster than Americans on the entrepreneurial side. But not everyone in Singapore is like that. So why don't you talk to your entrepreneurial path and explain a little bit more the early stages of you becoming an entrepreneur and knowing in a society that loves education, that loves, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, you stand out. This was by choice.
Actually, I'm one of the rare Singaporeans. In fact, most Singaporeans are not as entrepreneurial as people in Hong Kong or China or the US, right? And the reason is because, in Singapore, we are taught that, study hard, get good results, get a good job, and you get good, well-paying jobs in Singapore. A fresh graduate gets about 3,000 to 4,000 US dollars as a fresh graduate. As a manager, as a director, you can earn up to 10 to 20, 30,000 US dollars. So there's no real impetus to be entrepreneurial in Singapore. So I'm a bit of a odd duck in a way. And how I started was when I was young. My father was really stingy, although he was pretty wealthy. And he always tell me that whatever you want, you want to buy computer games, you want to buy CDs, go buy it yourself. Don't ask me for money. So as a result, I started working at the age of 14. I worked during my school holidays. I worked on weekends, and that's how I made my pocket money. And so I was kind of like forced to become entrepreneur by my dad, who wouldn't give me money for what I wanted. And that's how I learned how to, start saving and making money myself. And that's also the reason why at 18 I started trading, because I wanted to make some extra cash to buy my first car and all those things. So it was like necessity that drove me.
Maybe I've got a confirmation bias here about Singapore because we have a lot of common friends and associates we know. So perhaps I've been influenced by that rare group of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think so.
So listen, let me, you started trading at 17.
About 18 years old.
Okay, so you start trading at about 18. Talk about that experience and what was the motivation? How were you trading? How did that start?
I was motivated because I wanted to build my own money, my own wealth, because my dad wouldn't give me any money, right? Now, at the same time, I had a grandfather who, during Christmas and birthdays, would give me not presents, but he would give me share certificates in companies. It was my grandfather that got me interested in the world of the stock market. And remember, at this time, when I started trading, the internet did not exist. So we actually had to get, physical share certificates. We had to call the brokers on the phone. You have to read annual reports manually. You had to plot your own charts. There was no charting software. Like most people, I went through many phases of learning, right? The first phase is what you call the stupid phase, where you're completely lost. There's no real strategy, and you make the most stupid mistakes that beginners make. Like listening to stock tips, listening to rumors, right? Buying the cheapest stock, penny stocks, because you think it's so cheap it can't go lower. Thinking that I've got a small amount of capital, so let me buy the cheapest stock so I can buy more shares. And those are all the stupid things we did. And I remember one of my first investments that really lost me a lot of money was buying a construction company that was 3 cents. And when I bought it at 3 cents, I told myself this: it's so low, it can't go lower, right? I mean, it can only go up, right? And sure enough, from 3 cents, it dropped to 2 cents. And what did I do? I bought more, averaged down, all right, get it at a cheaper price. And it dropped to 1 cent. When it went to 1 cent, I told myself this: 1 cent is the lowest possible denominator. It can't go lower than that, so let's put even more in, right? It went to half a cent. And I said, I didn't even know that half a cent existed in the markets, right? So when I half a cent, I said, okay, this must be the lowest denominator. I put in more money, and it got suspended. And I lost everything. So that was the first phase, not knowing what I was doing. And then you get a bit smarter. So now I studied finance in university, so that helped a bit. And so I started, besides my textbooks, I started reading a lot of other books on investing. I started as a pure fundamentalist. All right. So the first book that influenced me was Buffettology, written by Warren Buffett's daughter-in-law. When I first started, I looked at all the fundamental aspects of investing. How do you calculate the intrinsic value of a company, discounted cash flow, PEG ratios, PE ratios, and all that. And when I started applying that methodology of investing, I started making money. Not too bad, 15-20% returns a year. But then I knew what to buy, but timing was off most of the time. So for example, I'll buy a good company, doing the fundamental check, bought it at a good price, okay, but it's undervalued, right? But cheap will still get cheaper, low will still get lower. Right, and then when it's overvalued, I sell it, it goes even higher. I knew that something was missing, alright, that I knew what to buy, but I didn't know just when to buy and when to sell it. The timing was not really accurate. And so the phase 3 was when I started to go into technical analysis. So I was a pure fundamentalist, and then what inspired me was I had a friend, I still have a friend, he's a good friend of mine, his name is Keong. He was a first-class honors student in the university that I was in, the National University of Singapore. And he worked for the government as an analyst for 2 years, quit his job, and became a full-time currency trader. So I met him after a couple of years, and I said, how are you doing, Keong? Because I would expect that he would rise up the ranks in the government service, being a first-class honors student. He said, jokingly, I'm unemployed. I said, what do you mean you're unemployed, right? What are you doing? And he said, I'm a trader. And he was such a great trader. He started with $10,000 and he built it up to $500,000 within a year and a half, and then up to $1 million within 3 years. And I was completely blown away. I mean, from a person who read about Warren Buffett doing 15-20% a year, and you listen to this guy making 20 to 30% to 40% a month, you think that it can't be. That's ridiculous. Prove it to me, show me. And when he showed me his trading records, I fell off my chair. And I said, how the heck do you do this? And it was purely technical analysis, purely chart reading. So that's how I got interested. So he started teaching me a bit about technical analysis, and then I started reading a lot more about it. I studied the works of people like Victor Sprandio, Methods of Wall Street Master, the works of people like, let me see who else was there, Alexander Elder. And then, of course, along the years, I then read your book, which really inspired me as well, The Complete Turtle Trader. That was a fantastic book. That's when I started applying technicals to my trading system. See, in the past, I didn't believe in technicals because they were talk about support and resistance, right? When the price hits support, it bounces off. But it didn't always bounce off. Sometimes you'll break through support. And I said, it's bullshit, right? It works sometimes, it works, doesn't work the other time. So how can I use something that doesn't work all the time? But when I really started learning about technicals from these great traders, I realized that technical analysis is not about predicting where the market is going to go, because no one can predict the market, as we know that. It's just to get a statistical edge over the market. As long as we have a probabilistic edge that we can be right more than half the time. Whether it's 55 or 60% of the time, we can make a lot of money as long as our average wins are more than our average losses. So that's where your position sizing, your money management comes in. So that's when I really understood the entire concept of a proper trading system, which is not just what to buy, which is the fundamental part of it, but when to buy, when to sell, which is the technical part of it, and more importantly, the position sizing, which is to ensure that you've got a positive expectancy. That when you lose a small percentage of your capital, right? You lose 1 R. We think in terms of units of R. When I read the Turtle Trader book that you wrote, I was surprised to learn that they use N, right? The concept of N, right? Based on ATR. So I used R. So just ensure when you lose 1 R. When you win at least 2 R. And as long as you're right, half the time or slightly more than half the time, you're making a lot of money. And that's when my trading started to skyrocket, and that's how by 26 I made my first million, and I got well known in that area in Singapore.
Let me speak to that well-known part. I have to say, you're the only person that when your name has come up, or I think someone saw a couple times your name has come up in conversation over the last year. Someone saw a picture with me and you and Fabian Lim, and they asked me a question. I have to admit, you are quite well known by the women of Asia. Even though I know you're taken and all that kind of stuff, you've developed quite a following. I'm gonna have to ask you at this end of this conversation how you deal with some of the fame aspects, because you are extremely well known across many countries. Let's bring this up to current day though. Because what you just talked about, that type of trading mentality, that type of trading strategy. So I've made my own observations about talking about that style of thinking, that trading style of thinking, whether it's all across Asia. And for whatever reason, and I would love for you to comment on this, and I'm not trying to pick a competitive battle, but it seems like to me that people in Asia are more open to the idea of technical analysis, are more embracing of it, and are more willing to dive into it versus, and there's plenty of people in Western countries as well, I'm not saying that, but it just seems overall, especially on the retail side of things, that people in Asia across many different countries are willing and able to dive into the style of trading you just described. How did that happen?
I wouldn't say that we are more inclined to technical analysis as compared to Americans or Europeans. In fact, I've got no comparison at all because I've never really thought in North America.
That's my analysis.
Yeah, your analysis, right? I don't know, but I would say that I guess even in Asia you have got your pure fundamentalists. You have people who still like the fundamental part of it, and you have got your technical people. So I would say it's still a 50-50 whenever I talk to most people. And when people come for my courses, you have to convert a considerable amount of people to the technical side as well. But I always believe that you have to combine the best of both worlds. It's like, Star Wars, both the dark side and the light side. You have to understand both to be a true Jedi, talking about.
You are pretty open, even though we've talked about some big numbers already, you're pretty open that there's no shortcuts. There's no get rich quick overnight. You can't give people a prediction that will make them $1 million tomorrow. You don't have a great recommendation for people. But however, even though you don't have all of this easy candy for people, you have developed quite a following and quite a successful training business. Why do you think people are willing to come to you, your organization, and not have the easy? You're not giving people the easy candy. You're saying this is going to take some work, but you can get there.
There's no free lunch in this world, and I appeal to their logic, and I say that if you want a get rich quick scheme, it's called a Ponzi scheme. It's called a scam. It doesn't exist. And if you want something that's get rich quick, go to the casino. But most of the time, you're going to get poor faster than that. And I say that making money consistently in the markets is like any other profession. It's like being a doctor or being a lawyer, being a surgeon. It needs knowledge and skill. But the time required to learn and master the skill, it's still less than being a surgeon or lawyer, but it's a skill nonetheless. I really frame them during the introductory workshops, that they have to put in the hard work. That there's no easy way out to that. That's where my NLP skills comes in, right? The influence, the persuasion, to get them to see the truth of what trading is all about. It's hard work, but it pays tremendous dividends. And the good thing is, I guess, in general, Asians are not afraid to work hard. Asians, I think, by nature, are really hardworking anyway. They work 16-hour days, so they are no stranger to hard work. If they can see that they can work hard with the right methodology, they are willing to put in the effort.
Now, what I'm about to tell you is not statistical proof of my assertion that there perhaps is a greater acceptance of technical analysis in Asia. But, and I think I told you this at your office in the summer, the only place that your humble author of a couple technical analysis books, have ever been recognized in a taxi on a Saturday morning after being out late, and the guy looking in the mirror and saying, "I know you," and knows my name, was in Singapore. So there's all the statistical proof you need. Technical analysis is more widely accepted in Asia.
Let me just share with you some facts. And this was from Forbes. It's one of the articles on Forbes. I can get it on the internet. It's been reported by Forbes that Singaporeans are the fastest in the world to become millionaires. And that's a fact, statistical proof from Forbes. Singapore has the highest percentage of millionaires in the entire world. In terms of percentage, 15.5%. 15.5% of Singaporean households are millionaire households. This was back in 2011, and by 2012, it was 17%. Where a lot of this comes from is that I would say that Singaporeans have the highest percentage of people trading the markets than most other countries out there. I would say, my gut feel, 1 in 3 working adults would have a brokerage account and would be trading some kind of investments or stocks compared to many other countries out there. So that's why a lot of people recognize you as well, right? Because they read a lot of your books,
Yeah, but I'm not out on the road and on the stages as much as you are. And speaking of that, I would love for you to take a moment here and maybe a little NLP, a little bit of motivational, because you've really got a wide perspective on this. I want to talk just some success principles with you. And let's imagine that you happen to be sharing the stage, on stage, or following up, or before Richard Branson, which I actually know you've done in your life. Talk to the audience about some of those great success principles. Look, I've just met you. Perhaps we're in a restaurant and you've got the floor, and I want you to kind of give some inspiration because you've really got some nice perspectives. And look, success principles never get old, right? I mean, we need reminders. We need the education all the time.
I would say that to really achieve excellence in anything, it's not one factor, it's not two factors, it's a combination of many factors working together. And I would say that it begins with, number one, having a vision, a goal that excites you, that's compelling, that you're obsessed about, right? Whether that goal is to make $1 million to feed the poor, or to do God's work, or to provide security for your family, or to freedom to travel the world, you gotta have a goal that excites you. For me, that first goal I set was to make my first million by 26. And I set that goal at age of 15. And I was inspired by Tony Robbins, as I mentioned earlier, who set his goal to make his first million at 24. And the reason I gave myself 2 extra years was because I had to go through the army in Singapore, right? So the same thing. Number one, have a goal, have a clear goal that excites you, that drives you, that gets you to jump off bed in the morning and go, yes, I'm going to go make that happen, right? So that's number one. Number two, once you know what you want and what excites you, is you got to have a strategy. Like you mentioned earlier on, in NLP, we believe that any goal can be achieved as long as you have a strategy to get there. And the fastest way to find a strategy is to model people who have done it before. Don't reinvent the wheel. So you want to be a great trader? Model the best traders around. So one of the books that also inspired me a lot was Market Wizards, where, I can't remember the author's name. He interviewed all these top traders.
Jack Schwager.
Schwager. Model success. Model what works. Model the right psychology in trading. And again, like what Schwager says, there's no the way. There's no the way. There are many ways. Right? You have to find something that fits your personality. Number 3 is getting yourself to take massive action. So many people, they know what to do, they know how to do, but they don't do it. Or if they do it, they don't do it consistently. They do it for 1 day, for 2 days, for 1 week, and after a while they say, you know what? Let's go do something else. You got to stick to it. You got to take consistent action. And a lot of it comes from managing your own emotions. Being able to motivate yourself when you feel lethargic. Being able to get yourself excited again when you have a series of losses or when you have a setback, which we all go through. in order to do that, I always say that you have to celebrate success in small ways. On one hand, you should think big and have a huge goal. But on the other hand, tell yourself that every step you take is a success. And break that goal down into small steps. And if every single day you can take one step forward, if every single day you can learn a new distinction about trading in the markets, if every single day you can take that one more trade or to learn that one more idea, in a year that the compounded return is going to be phenomenal. Success is not about reaching that goal. It's about continuously moving forward. If you keep telling yourself that, you will feel more confident to keep moving on. Because I always believe that success breeds success. The more successful you feel, the more confident you are to do that. The other thing is the ability to really deal with setbacks and failures. So we know that when you take action, I always tell people that when you take action, you always get results. You either get results you want or results you don't want. But you always get results. And if you take action and you get results you don't want, at least you learn something from it. At least you're better off than someone else who, thinks and thinks and talks and talks and thinks and talks, but doesn't take action at all. Because at least now, by taking action, you know what doesn't work. At least you've got more experience. You're better off than where you were before you took action. When you take action and you don't get the results you want, don't see it as failure. See it as just a result. And the result is simply feedback telling you that, hey, your strategy is not working yet. So keep getting feedback and keep changing your strategy until you get the results you want. And the key is to do whatever it takes. And I always believe that when you're committed to something, there's always a way. You talk to any great trader, they've blown multiple accounts before they made it. And so did I. I think I blew 5 accounts. Okay. One of the accounts I blew was a CFD account and a stock trading account and options. I blew so many accounts, right? And that's how you learn. That's how you move on. I like to quote Rocky Balboa in one of his recent movies. It's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And that's how winning is done. And to do all this, it really comes down to your belief systems. The beliefs about what you think you can or cannot do. The beliefs about what you think is or is not possible. The belief about how you see yourself. Because how you see yourself, do you see yourself as someone who deserves to be successful? Or do you see yourself as someone who's struggling? Because how you see yourself will affect what you demand of yourself. It affects the standards you set for yourself. And that will then affect what you will or will not do. Let me share 2 beliefs that have really empowered me. And the first belief is that we all have the same potential. That if someone can do something, so can you. I'm sure you've heard of Nick Vujicic, the guy who was born with no arms and no legs.
Absolutely.
Right, from Australia. He is also an options trader. So I always show his kind of like little talk during my seminars. And I say, if this guy with no arms and no legs can be an entrepreneur, can be a preacher, can be an options trader, and can be a best-selling author, what's your excuse? You know what I'm saying? And the second belief is that for things to change, I must change first. Is to take full responsibility for your results and for your emotions. If you buy a stock and it doesn't go your way, don't blame Janet Yellen. Don't blame Brexit. Take ownership. Because as you blame something else, that something else will forever control the results of your life. But when you take ownership and responsibility and you learn something from it, that's how you grow and that's how you progress as a person.
Is think about some of the content pieces that we've talked about today so far, NLP, psychology, trading. But one thing I want to talk about is the development of your firm. And the thing that's pretty obvious with the development of your firm is there's a real team aspect. And what I mean by that is when I look at your world, it's more than just making money. People either know or you guys have let people understand how important it is to be part of a group. So it seems like to me, and I see this actually all across Asia, is people really love the in-person events. They really love being together. I see less of that in my home country. Why don't you speak to how your firm is developed in terms of really bringing people together as a group, and why you really, it seems like you really do a great job of not leaving people alone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like in my company, I mean, we do all kinds of trainings as long as it develops a person to their highest potential. So for example, we have got the Patterns of Excellence program that does the NLP training, which teaches people about how to master themselves and to master their communication skills. We've got Wealth Academy, where we empower retail investors to succeed in trading the equity markets, the futures markets, and the currency markets. We have got a kids program where we empower kids to excel in school. What all these courses have in common is that the training doesn't stop after the initial workshop. So whether the workshop is 4 to 5 days, the training doesn't stop after that 5 days. It just begins, because my firm belief is that you can't master anything in 3 or 4 or 5 days. You can't, right? Mastery comes with consistent application of what you've learned. What has made us stand out against all our other competitors is that a few things. For example, anyone who joins our program, they get unlimited free re-attendance. They can attend that same program as many times as they like, free of charge. And I've had people who have attended Wealth Academy 12 years ago, and they've just come for a resit after 12 years because they wanted to see what was new and they wanted to refresh their ideas. That's one thing. The other thing that we do is that in every program, we put people into teams, right? For example, after Wealth Academy, we put them into investment teams of 5 to 6 people. They are then part of a bigger club that meets at least once a month, where every month they meet, the teams would rotate to present the best investment ideas for that month. It's a club run for the members by the members. And now, because of technology, we have got chat groups on Telegram and WhatsApp. So they don't feel left alone, because, you know, for most people, when you go back and you don't have someone to talk to about trading or whatever it is, you're going to lose interest after a while. You're going to lose motivation. We tend to be like the people we surround ourselves with. So when you can surround yourself with like-minded people who are equally as inspired as you, who are doing the same thing, the chance of success is much, much greater. And we build a community. We build a community of people who come back and they have the passion to share with the next group of students that come in. And so it's become such that the success of the program doesn't depend on the trainer, myself or my other trainers, but it depends on the entire community making it successful. So they take full ownership of the program.
Let me dive a little bit deeper on the development of your firm. I'm really curious. Obviously, you're in this part of the world, but you have business interest and you tour and you speak from Singapore to Malaysia to Indonesia to China to Vietnam to Thailand to India, perhaps other places that I've not mentioned. Talk about the first. What was the first country after Singapore? Malaysia? Was that the first place?
Malaysia, yeah. So it's just a 2-hour drive across the causeway. So it's, yeah, Malaysia.
I mean, look, we're kind of taking your entire career so far, which is spanning well over, I guess, over 15 years, and we're trying to condense it into a short conversation. When you started, you're only in Singapore, and then there starts to be the branching out. What was the feeling and the expectation? Were there any surprises? And look, there's many different countries here, and each country is unique. Maybe perhaps talk about Indonesia. Were there any localization hurdles that you had to jump, or bringing people into your world? Or have you found across this whole cross-section of countries that your message has just resonated once you got language barriers taken care of?
I would say the main challenge was really the language barrier. I mean, between Singapore and Malaysia, the culture is very similar. Malaysians and Singaporeans speak English for the most part as a first language, so that wasn't an issue. The first major challenge was Indonesia, because when I first went to Indonesia about 10 years ago, most people did not really understand English or converse comfortably in English. When I was teaching my entire program, it had to be translated on the spot. Another thing would be, for example, the country, how advanced are they on the financial investing spectrum? Let me give you an example. Like, for example, in Singapore, like I said, when people come for my class or for my previews, I would say that more than 60% have a brokerage account, have bought a stock sometime in their life. But when you go to Indonesia, I mean, Indonesia has got, if I'm not wrong, I think, I can't remember, but 50, 100 million people or something like that, right?
I think it's 250 million people.
Okay, 200 million people, right?
Yeah.
Now, 200 million people, I spoke to the people in the stock exchange over there. There are less than 300,000 accounts open with brokers. Less than 300,000 out of 200 million population, right? So most people, when you go there, they have got no concept of what a stock is, of what it means to buy and sell. It's really starting the education from scratch. The same thing with Vietnam. Very few of them have even heard of a stock chart before. So when you go to different countries, you really have to start at very different levels, right? Especially when it comes to the world of investing and trading. And of course, the language is the other thing. And the way you market to the people. So I'll give you an example, right? In Singapore, most of the marketing is done via the press media, right? Newspapers as well as Facebook. But in Indonesia, the main way of marketing is through radio. Interestingly enough, because a lot of
they're all in traffic in the car, right?
They're stuck in the traffic for 4 hours a day, right? So they listen to the radio, right? And they don't really respond to Facebook ads. They don't really read press media, right? So every country has got its own way of reaching out.
You know, when we met, I'm sure I had seen your name and your publications, but I didn't connect all the dots. And we met backstage in Saigon at this Branson event that you were speaking at. Why don't you give some perspective, if you had any time to share, or did you make some observations, anything that struck you? I mean, look, a lot of us all know of Branson and we see him and admire his success. Was there anything that you detected in person that struck you?
I've actually read his biography years ago, Losing My Virginity. So I kind of know, I kind of went in with already some prior knowledge about his character, the way he thinks. He's a risk taker. At the same time, he's quite a caring person. I mean, for example, unlike another entrepreneur, like for example Donald Trump, where his value system would be more of I want to win, it's power. Branson is more like I want to change the world. I want to live my life to the fullest. Very, very different value system and character. I didn't really get anything that was surprisingly out of what I expected Branson to be. Of course, now at his age, his focus is not so much on business so far, so much as his space exploration. So he didn't really talk about business that much, right? He talked really more about, changing the world, helping people and all that. And that was pretty much in line with what I believed was his value system.
Give me some numbers. How many people are you reaching across Asia in your assorted training programs? Because not only are you teaching people, and again, I find this is not like a promotional question. I think it's more an entrepreneurial question because a dozen years ago, you did not expect to be reaching hundreds of thousands of people, but you do. Speak to some numbers and how you see the growth and what countries do you see next that interest you for expansion?
We train over 90,000 people in Singapore alone, 90,000. But of the 90,000, a big chunk of that about 70,000 would be kids, children. I mean, they pay a very low fee to come for the program. The fees are actually fully paid for by the government. But the actual adults coming and they pay the higher level course fees for financial programs would be about 20,000 in Singapore. So about 90,000 students in Singapore alone. And then we've got Malaysia, we've got Indonesia, we've got Vietnam. These are our main countries. The country that we just expanded into, and we're looking at it to grow in a big way, will be the Philippines. Yeah, Philippines.
I want to read something from some of your materials that I really like. I probably in some lifetime of mine, I've probably written something very similar in a way. I mean, I relate to it. But I want you to talk to why your audience relates to this so much. You talk about having the ability to live in freedom from anywhere in the world, and you say, no commuting, no employees, no customers, no bosses, and no rentals to worry about. Trading is truly the ideal career and business for you if you want to live a lifestyle of freedom and security. Now, look, you and I have seen these, we've had this understanding for a long time, and perhaps sometimes we need the reminder, but it truly is an opportunity when one is trading, one is investing. You're like a free agent to the world. You can be anywhere. And I guess that message is clearly resounding with your audiences.
Yes, absolutely.
Where can we send people, Adam? We need to get people out to check you out. Your books are everywhere. How many books have you written? There's some crazy number I saw.
Just 16, 16.
16?
16.
Where's the best website for everyone to go if they want to check you out?
In fact, I've prepared a little link to give away a free ebook to your listeners. This ebook is called Method, Money Management, and Mindset, the 3 keys to consistent profits in trading. So I'd like to offer this free ebook. They can go to wealthacademyglobal.com/Mike. And I did it just for you. MIKE.
wealthacademyglobal.com/Mike, MIKE.
That's right. And you can download the free ebook from there.
We've never done an official dinner yet. We're going to have at least a lunch, dinner, or coffee at some point in time in the near future. I missed you the last time I was there. Patrick and your associate took us to a really fun hawker center there in Singapore that was quite nice. The chef was memorable. I cherish my video of the chef from that day.
Okay. I'll love to catch up soon.
Okay, take care, Adam.
Take care, Mike.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.